Welcome back, Rad Fam, to another episode of the Rad DAO podcast. Now, this is episode 7, and you may or may not know this about podcasts, but episode 7 is where podcasts go to die. Fear not, because I have content lined up for months, so I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I am just getting started. If you don't want to miss an episode, the absolute best way to do that is make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, or you've got it set to auto download on your favorite podcast app. Please make sure you leave this one a like as well. Let's try and get it up to, 50 likes. I think we can do that. 50 sounds like a good number. And let's see where we can push this thing, because we want to grow the Rad Fam. So share it around, drop it in your favorite Telegram group, send it over on Discord, email it to your grandma, whatever we got to do to get the word out there. Now, my guest today is an interesting as fuck human being. He is one half of the Billboard chart-topping music producer group Made by Monkeys. And for a brief moment in time, he was more popular than Jennifer Lopez on the dance charts. Fucking wild. He's also an author. He wrote a book called Smart Guide to Stop Using Stupid Words. And he runs a YouTube channel called 90 Seconds of Wisdom, where every Saturday you get to hear 90 Seconds of Wisdom. Go figure, eh? With that, let's just get into it. Welcome Andrew Kapoor to episode 7 of the Rad DAO podcast. Let's go. Andrew, my man, welcome. How are you?
Great, thanks. Nice to see you, Brad.
Awesome. So just for our listeners, let me run down the list here. So Billboard chart-topping DJ, author, podcast host, YouTube channel subscriber, was once an options day trader. What am I missing? What don't you do?
Thanks for the warm intro. Well, look, for music, I was never really a DJ, but more of a music producer.
Okay, so, producer, my mistake.
I did have #1 Billboard hit under the name Made by Monkeys. I did do a lot of hip hop. I worked in a hip hop studio for 3 years. I did have some songs for a great artist named Bad News Brown here in Montreal. And he was quite famous. He did a lot of shows with he was on stages like Ludacris, 50 Cent, you name it, like all huge names. And he's a good friend of mine, and we recorded tracks, before anyone knew who we were. And he used to play at this club here called Sapphire, and they had drum and bass upstairs, and downstairs was reggae, and it was the best club ever. And I remember this one day we were walking by, and he used to always carry with him this knapsack and have he used to play harmonica and rap, right? That was his thing. And he used to walk with his knapsack. He always had all his harmonicas in a knapsack. And I remember we're walking by once on Saint Laurent Street here in Montreal, and we see this on a poster just on this wooden post, and we see it, and it says, "Tonight, Bad News Brown," at Sapphire, and completely unaware, right? Oh, I guess I'm playing. So we're like, we happen to be 5-minute walk from Sapphire. It's like, oh, cool. He's like, I don't even know I was playing tonight. I guess there's posters everywhere. Okay, cool. So we walk into the club, and and the place is packed, right? And he just walks up, and he comes up to whisper something to the DJ, and the DJ, everyone knows him, right? And he comes up, and the DJ, flips tracks, and then Bad News just pulls out some harmonicas and hears what the track that's playing, and he just pulls out one harmonica, and okay, cool. And he just gets up on the table, stands on a table, and just starts playing the craziest, and the whole place erupts, right?
Oh my God.
It's just like, this is how we lived back in the day. It was just so random and so amazing and so free, and it was just real music, right?
There's something super cool about that you probably don't get a lot these days, and just the spontaneity of it, and that the people that were there experienced something really memorable, right? Did he just forget he was playing at that show, or were they trying to rope him in through marketing or something?
No, he just wasn't aware. I mean, that it was that night. It was usually Thursdays we would go. It was a Thursday night, and that was a cool night to go. And it was just a random memory. Anyways, so I did 2 songs for his debut album on Universal Records. a song called Intelligence, and in homage to, I own Intelligence Records Studios, and then there's another song. What's the other one? Called Get Money. That's an interesting story. Real quick, is we pitched that to 50 Cent and Eminem and all their crew, right? We made this song. I wrote the song with the other guy from Made by Monkeys, and had Bad News Brown on it. And so we pitched that to them, and there was a meeting that went on. What's their record label called again? I forget. With that whole crew, oh my god.
Oh, I don't know, dude. Anyways, before my time.
So they went and pitched that, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's a really good song, and whatever." And about a month later, there was a song released by 50 Cent called "I Get Money," and he was very inspired. Let's just say, what we wrote, and it was I loved it. People come and they're like, "Hey, 50 stole your song." I'm like, he didn't steal. This is great. Like, it's just like, I take it as a compliment, like that he listened to it, got so inspired that he wrote, a song called "I Get Money." So you're
not the official producer, but like everybody knows that you produced it, right?
It is like it's all fun. I mean, it's a different sounding song and stuff like that, but it was just like, hey, listen, you can inspire another musician and if his caliber by listening to your track, why not? I thought it was wonderful, and I don't want to take this to a sad turn, but the hip hop game is the hip hop game. So Bad News Brown was wow, I can't remember how many years ago now, but he was murdered. One of the first murders of the year, which we're getting up to the anniversary in a week from today. Not even. And it was a brutal thing, and no one really knows what happened. And it was rumors that it was somebody on another rapper that he insulted on stage. And so, yeah, I don't want to get it dark, but yeah, God rest his soul. Wonderful, wonderful guy, good friend. And we were working on his follow-up album at the time, producing that when it all kind of ended. So, that was a very interesting for vibrations, let's say. I don't want to get too much down that road, but interesting vibes. The guy was he was really, really wonderful. He didn't use logic. He only used creation and instinct to run his whole life, which really, 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 really was special and worked out for him. And it just was his time, I guess. It's yeah,
that's too bad. It's interesting that you say you sort of use creation to drive his life, because I admire people that do. I'm not like that at all. I tend to want to plan things. I want to have like milestones and get to where I know I'm going, as opposed to just sort of seeing what happens. And I'm trying to let go of that a bit, but it's a very difficult thing. So it's kind of the complete opposite personality that I am, that I'm trying to adopt a little bit more of. But some people genuinely just, they'll say yes to something, they'll say no to something, and then they'll just go this way, and then they'll zag that way. And then, at the end of the day, they have a wonderful life, or a diverse life, but they didn't know anything about where it was headed at the time, which is, it's scary to a lot of people.
Well, look, logic is fantastic and gets you so far, but if you're in a higher vibration and if you're tuned in correctly, there's what I call something like like breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs. Let's say breadcrumbs that are like laid out for you. If you have the ability to see them, they're everywhere, right? And they're showing you like the best path to go down. And it's not like one or two. And if you reflect, it's easier because of our human perception to look back. But when you meditate and look back, you realize that it wasn't like one or two or three signs. It was like 5 or 10, and who knows if there's another 20 that you missed, right? So if you can keep your eye open for those cookie crumbs or those breadcrumbs, whatever you want to call them, that are there all the time, showing you what's the right way, what's the right direction, what's the opportunities, then you can live more in flow state. And it's more freeing and much more exciting of a life, I guess.
No, that's a really interesting thought. I mean, I don't do as much reflection as I probably should, or as you might, but I have done some sort of thinking about. It's interesting to look at your history and sort of things that you've tried or picked up, or skills you've acquired, or interests or hobbies, and then they go dormant for 15 years, and then they pop up again in a completely different way. And you never know sort of what something you did 15, 20 years ago is how it's going to influence something that's going to happen for the next 10 to 15 years. And I'll take this podcast for an example. I'm not a producer. I've never really done this sort of thing before, but I did dabble with a little bit of music producing when I about 15 years ago. So I had some education in editing and putting it all together, which I'm now applying to this. But meanwhile, I haven't done anything with that skill for 15 years. So you never know where a door is going to lead you. And it kind of goes back to that idea that every decision you've ever made is what led you to this moment. And so if you change something in the past, then you don't end up sitting in the chair that you're currently sitting in, or doing whatever you're doing. So I think it's important to sort of acknowledge that and realize that the shit that you may have gone through before has helped you grow and get where you're going here.
Yeah, that's it. Remember, they always say this, the comfort zone is a dangerous place, right? Tony Robbins says the most dangerous place, the gray zone. So you want to be like uncomfortable to grow. When you're comfortable, it's awesome, but you're not growing and you're not progressing. So it's classic. It's that thing that that line from that movie Apocalypse Now, where it's like, when I'm at home, I think about the jungle. When I'm in the jungle, I think about being at home, right?
Yeah.
So
I think people, and I want to talk about this a little bit more in detail before we get into crypto, because we'll get there eventually. But I think the idea that people have, and especially coming into New Year's, people are going to make a lot of resolutions. They're going to set a goal, or they're going to change a priority in their life, but they see the goal as the thing. Like that's what I'm trying to get to. But what they fail to realize is that the process of actually getting there is the thing. If for anyone that's ever really gone after something and put a ton of focus and time and energy in it, the moment of achievement, while it is definitely elating and there's that dopamine hit and all that, when you look back on it a year, 2 years, 5 years later, it wasn't, that moment you were on stage at this big show, or that moment you crossed the finish line. It was the work that you put in to get to that point that you reflect on, at least in my eyes, as I do, as the most positive aspects of the whole thing. And I think people lose the journey for the goal, which they shouldn't, because I think they got to establish where they are in their process and what they're going through and acknowledge it, but realize that they're getting a little bit better and they're progressing a little bit more towards that goal.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you can look at like the best person speaker for that is Jim Carrey, right? Who said, like, we achieved everything. He got to the top. He's like, guess what? I wish everyone could achieve this. The level of success I did, to know that there's nothing there. There's nothing at the top. And that's why you have all these extremely unhappy people, in unfortunate situations we look up to because of television, these Hollywood stars, music stars, right? Their lives are horrible, man. They're horrible. Look at Johnny Depp. We just saw a little window into his life. You're looking at Johnny Depp. He must have the best life ever. Does he? No, he sounds like he has a really, really tough life,
Yeah, it's breakfast of cocaine and whiskey. Like, what are you trying to mask?
Well, that's it, right? Someone told me this when I was young. It says, it's a crutch. Everything's a crutch. It's okay to use a crutch, but if you're walking on crutches all the time, there's something very wrong.
Yeah, no, it's true. But so going back to your musician career, like, were you always a musician? Is this something that came about? Like, how did you get into that? And then from there, the pivots are crazy, but I think you've kind of followed your flow state, so to speak, into that next venture. But let's go back.
Yeah. There's a couple of big influences I've had in my life. When I was, I'm from a family of musicians. So like my grandmother on my father's side, in my Indian side, she was a very famous singer, and she went all around India singing on radio stations and stuff like that. And she was also an actress in Bollywood TV soaps or soap operas. And from that side, and then the other side, from my mom's side, my grandmother was also a quite accomplished piano player. So it was like kind of it's in our blood, in our lineage or whatever, that there was a lot of great artists and especially musicians. So that was part of it. I wrote my first piano song, I think, when I was about 7, and I played it in front of my whole school. And I still remember the song. It's terrible, but people seemed to like it at the time. And I remember the first time I ever seen a piano, and my face like lighting up, and I was delighted. And I just started writing songs like right away. And every day I remember climbing up the bench because I was so small at the time, and just playing and playing and playing and playing. And I just never stopped. And then I'll get to the end point, let's say, quicker. I still write piano songs right now, and I have some of them released on my YouTube channel. And I've gone away from music production, which I did for over a decade of my life, and now I just simplified back to just straight piano acoustic stuff, because that's where I'm at. But then it's that thing that you alluded to earlier, and saying about the journey and what did it get you, right? The journey. And then when you really go, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and then we'll get into crypto, I promise, and option trading and all that, is, you look at that journey and you look at things, and then you understand, well, you know what, um, what is music? And the way I see it, music is like the language of God, and when you start to understand what music really is on a very deep and spiritual level, then I understood why I did so many years and years of it. And then there was a great line, and it really, so I wish everyone could remember this, is this lady had died. She passed away for briefly on on the surgery table or whatever, and she met God, so to speak. And they said, when they asked her, wow, how was it? How did God sound? And he speak to you in English? Did he show you stuff? How was it? And she said, no, yeah, God spoke to me, but God doesn't speak like English. God speaks in music and math. And I said, wow, that's that's really, really interesting, right? So you start looking at those things and understanding what it is. And I'm going to tie this into your question before and say, like, well, what's a worthy goal, right? Like, and it depends on where your vantage point is, right? Like, for what, and looking when. A worthy goal for 1 year out, 3 year out, 3 years out, 25 years out, end of your life out. I mean, I work with these Indian vocalists, where this one guy, a very good friend of mine, he's an enlightened master, and he knows how far he'll get in his practice by practicing every single day, all day. He knows where he'll peak out, and he knows how many more lives he has to reincarnate to continue practicing. So he's like, I'm like, wow, his name is Chintan. If you're interested, any of your viewers are interested, I did a podcast with him. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he told me, he's like, listen, we know, like, so their goal is lifetimes. I don't think we can really appreciate those kind of lofty goals. You think you have a big goal of making $1 million or financial freedom, or I want a new house or whatever, which is fine and all normal. It's not to take away. It's just like, well, what is it? And what's the ultimate goal? And what vantage point are you looking for?
I love the idea of a vanishing point, because I think you can have multiple vanishing points, or you can have steps along the way to the ultimate vanishing point. Because most people, if they put a goal on the table that's 25 years in the future, that you get totally lost in that 25 years along the way, right? And it's hard for people to maintain that level of focus on something for that long period of time. But by sort of chunking it down into like smaller, more achievable objectives, I think it's possible. But I think this does tie all the way back to crypto, which is where we can go now, is the idea of patience, the idea of working for something. Because so many people came in the last 18 months expecting to have their lives changed in 24 hours or in a week or in 2 weeks. And they came in, they lost all their money, they left, and they may never be back, right? Because they just had a misunderstanding of what crypto is and what it means to actually invest their hard-earned dollars. And I use the word invest because that's what it should be. I think what a lot of people were doing last year was gambling. They were, calling it an investment, but ultimately there was really no research. There was no due diligence. There was nothing. It was just, let's throw it at something and see if it happens. But I think in the cycle that we're in now, we're sort of, let's call it bottom-ish of the bear market. I'm not calling the bottom. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm saying we're in the bottom cycle right now. People need patience, right? They need to think about what their actual goals are. Think about what they can put aside in terms of investing dollars, that they can comfortably, set aside without impacting their cash flow. Because, let's be honest, life is getting more expensive right now. So that number may not be as high as you want it to be, but you have to be patient. You have to be patient with anything, any investment. We shouldn't be expecting 10x overnight. We should be expecting 10x over years, right? So what's your take on sort of patience and people's, I don't call it lack of persistence, but just their short attention span when it comes to investing and or anything else?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you look at the great investors, right? Warren Buffett and stuff like that. You understand what it takes. And then you understand, the average person should understand compound interest, right? And how that works and how that kind of goes slow. And then near the end of the curve, it just picks up and takes off, right? So if you kind of understand that, you start understanding how a patient approach can lead you to riches. but it's human instinct. Is our instinct is wrong. Okay, and there's a great thing even with like technical analysis, right? I watch a lot, so every day I watch at least 3 videos, probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours of crypto videos per day. And when you look at the technical analysis, I did a lot of technical analysis and stuff like that, especially when I was options trading. And you look at it, it's almost like this game of like, I know that you know that I know. Okay, and it
That's a
becomes
good way to put it.
right. So it becomes so crazy that you're like, well, this is hitting this, the Bollinger Band and the Fibonacci retracement, and we're getting in that MACD, and we have it all lined up. Okay, it's all lined up so that this is a perfect entry point, right? Now, like one way to look at it is like, well, all the robots, because most of it's like AI trading and stuff like that. Well, they're using that, so that's kind of a good thing because you got to think like the robot, because the majority is going to be moving the wave that way, right? So one way you can win is by that, and the other way you could win is really Max Payne, right? I always use that website, right? Max Payne website on options trading. It show you for any stock. It's very good for anything you're trading, to understand where's the Max Payne and when's the options expiration dates. So the market has this tendency to make the most amount of people lose the most amount of money. Okay, that's the game.
Yeah.
So when you look at something, and I'll say something that's going to probably, some TA people will agree, and a lot of them will be very angry with me. TA is mostly useless. Okay, mostly. Now, it's very, very useful about 3 to 4 times a year, but you got to watch those damn candles day in and day out, and do the 4-hour chart, the weekly, and all those stuff. But if you keep watching, what I realized when I was trading is that, again, back to what you said before about patience. Don't try to jump in looking for a long, looking for a short, looking like right now. If I was trading right now, and as we're recording this, I would be doing what I did with oil, non-directional puts and calls. I'd be selling. So let's say we're at 16, as we're talking, probably 16,700 on Bitcoin. I'd be selling 18,000 calls, and I'd be selling 15,000 puts on weeklies. That's what I'd be doing right now, because it's moving $100 a day, $100 up, $100 down, $200 up, $100 down. So sell those options to the market, do weeklies, do whatever, and just take the money, because it ain't moving anywhere. And that's probably for a long shot. So what's the chances of it? Why would you go long or short when it's only moving? Like, there's no volatility. No volatility means nobody's making money. It means that your options are just losing, it's losing value per day, right? And I don't know. I know your audience is pretty educated on options, but do we want to explain options? Or
yeah, we can dive into it. To be honest, I've never traded I've done future contracts, but I've never actually traded like calls and puts as you have. So feel free to educate the audience.
You buy an option based on a strike price, and then on a date. Now, the minute you buy the option, it starts decreasing in value right away, because there's time to it, the time element, and then there's the volatility element and the price element, right, to it. So let's say I want to buy something. It's like, think of it as a bet. So there's this little, I'll say in this term of stocks, because it might be easier. So there's a $10 stock, right? I think that stock's going to go to $12, but by when? So I got to say, okay, in 3 weeks. So I choose one of the expirations dates, or monthly, or whatever it is, expiration. So say, okay, 3 weeks, I find out an expiration date. This is when I think it's going to be done by. And I buy an option. Why would I buy an option? Because it's leveraged. So, right. So now it, by a very small move, so it's like 100, it's 10x or 100x, depending on how you explain it, leverage, right? So you go and you buy that option, and now a small move, so like a 3% move. If you get a 3% move up like right away, you can double your money. Okay. And if that same 3% move comes in like 5 days from now, maybe you're only going to make 10% of your money.
Okay.
It's really, really like, so it's about volatility. So if the volatility suddenly goes down, it sucks out a bunch of the value of the option. If volatility starts going up, and it can move a lot more, then your option is going to gain value, because it has more chances of winning and losing, right? If that
makes sense. Yeah.
So when I would trade options, I would trade based on time and volatility more than price. And some of the things, okay, I'll give you a quick example on earnings. When an earnings call comes out, so earnings call is going to be, whatever it is, whatever the company, they're going to announce it for 4:00 p.m. and earnings. So what you could do is you got to time it well, and you got to know, look at the 3 days before what they're trading at, the options, and if you can catch that selling an option. So let's say again the stock's at $10, and you sell like a $12 option, like a call. So you're saying, okay, it's not going to go past 12, which is a 20%, and you kind of time it so when it gets very, very volatile, right before the market closes, it's super volatile because it could go. Sometimes the stock could go way up or way down, and depending on which stock, of course, some are more stable than others. But if it has an implied volatility, and you can find that information out before, applied volatility of 15% up or down, okay, that's pretty big. And you can sell options, like sell that option right before the minute the earnings come out, all the volatility gets sucked out. So then the price goes way down, right? But you sold it to the market. So you just buy it right back as soon as you can.
Okay.
Right? Given it's 4 p.m., so that's after hours trading. So you might want to do it at someone that announces at 9:30 a.m., but I don't want to get too complicated. But there's little things you can do if you're patient. If it all comes down to patience, right? The guy who taught me how to do, so I did a $10,000 course called Options Animal that a friend of mine had bought and let me go through that course. So it taught me everything. And he told me some, very obvious, but very wise. This applies to crypto, obviously, as well. It says, it's not the coin, it's not the stock, it's when you bought it and when you sell it. Look at Solana, right? Had you bought Solana, when it was like, whatever it was, 20 cents up to $200, my God. But had you kept Solana, now it's down to like $10, right? So
I have a family member that used to be a hedge fund manager, so he did a lot of trading in his day. But he bought me a book actually, which was a bunch of interviews with like the world's best traders, and a lot of them, I think they all said it. In fact, that you can remove the name from the chart. It doesn't make a difference what's at the top of that chart. It's the price action and the candles and the movement of everything that they can trade. So like they may focus on a certain sector, but they could literally trade anything in the world based on the experience that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to look at those things and look at people saying like, oh, and yeah, crypto got destroyed. This was a very bad year for crypto. And
You don't say.
For many years, but just Terra Luna just did not stop. After Terra Luna, Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, and FTX was just it's like cherry on top of the whatever, the disgusting dessert that we all had to eat this year. I don't know how to give a good analogy of that, but just what a crazy. But look at the other stuff. Look at Tesla. Look at Peloton. Look at all these things. They're all down 75 to 90%.
Carvana or Bed Bath and Beyond.
Right. Yeah. So it happens. It happened when, and that's the other thing to understand is how much money, how much volume is being traded on a certain thing, right? So something's not being traded, there's not much volume, don't bother. And I'm talking about coins. This is very applicable to coins as well. So how much volume is trading per day? It's really, really a big thing. I know a lot of myself too. I have a good friend of mine who's a hedge fund manager, and he's like, yeah, if there's not like X amount of volume, they won't even look at it. You could be an amazing opportunity. They won't even look to buy it.
Yeah, I've got a futures trader coming on probably end of January for the show, and he's going to talk me through his strategies. But what I've found in my personal experience trading, which I've kind of backed off of for a couple reasons, and I'll get into both, but one of them was anytime I traded a low volume coin, it's like market makers or somebody just looked at the order books and fucking wiped out my position because they had enough market depth that they could just take on the order books, send the coin to wherever, and just liquidate me, right? And that is definitely the risk with low volume coins. But your options history, and maybe you found this, it's on 24/7. Like this is not something you stop thinking about. And that's what I found when I was trading futures as well, is that I couldn't live my life the way that I wanted to because I was constantly like, I had charts on my phone, I had charts on my computer, and like every fucking 10 minutes it felt like I was checking charts. And while sure the gains can be good, the gains could also be bad, but I felt that I was trading too much time away from my family in particular to actually try and pull that off.
I'm going to explain something for all your viewers, and very, very important. A little piece of wisdom. The guy that taught me how to trade options is a billionaire. Okay, not a millionaire. He's a billionaire, and he is the most miserable person I've ever met in my life. And why? Why was he so miserable? Because you buy something, okay, in options, and I mean, this guy was fantastic at it, and every day, I mean, it was mind blowing when he was teaching me. He had screens open, and he had 6 screens, and he had all his charts and his things and all, just like you would expect, and he's like just one screen. He has like one thing open, one trade open, up 45 grand. Another trade's open, up 160 grand. Another trade. This is all like, I'm like, close it, like.
Just please close it.
No, like it's like that one. I'm letting that one ride for at least another week, and I'm like, I was just shocked, right? Like it's mind blowing when you see that kind of stuff. And what happens is that, okay, you go and you make a good trade, okay? So you go, you buy something, you sell it. Most of the time you're not going to hit the top, so you're going to sell it, and it's going to keep going. It's going to run. You're going to be like, I can't tell you the amount of times this has happened to me, on stocks especially, but coins as well too. So you go in NFTs as well. So that happened to me recently on NFT, and I was just like, I was going on this. It was like one of those where God has a great sense of humor. I was buying NFTs and I kept holding them too long, and I was like, okay, you know what? The next one, I'm going to make my money. All of them I could have been profitable, but I held too long and they went down. I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to be good with this one. I'm just going to make my 150 bucks on it, my little bit of Ethereum, get in, get out, treat it like an options, same day trading, get in and get out on the thing. Cool. So I do. And I bought 2 of them, and I got in, I got out. I got in again, and I got out again. I made more money. And I'm like, this is great. This is great. And I sold them at 0.35 Ethereum. Now they're at 3 Ethereum.
Oh no.
And it's called Titans something. Anyways, yeah, and I'm just like, like the one time I try to be a responsible adult about my trading, and like not, because I have a crazy risk tolerance, obviously. So
But only in this industry can you feel bad about making money because you didn't make more money, right?
Right. So this is thank you for bringing that up. So that's my whole point. My whole point is, when you win, you still feel like you lost, and when you lose, you feel like a loser. So almost every day, when you finish your day, all you're doing is looking at losses, or you're looking at, man, I can't believe I was so chicken and I sold too early. I could have made so much more money. So what do you feel? You just feel bad all the time. So be careful of that trap. And the people who are really good at trading and stuff, they usually meditate at least twice a day, to keep themselves really, really balanced, keep yourself really detached from it. They say, it's similar to poker. Keep your emotions at the door. Like don't get angry. Just do your thing. Have your game plan, like you said before. Patience, a tight game plan. I'm gonna sell at this no matter what. This is my stop loss no matter what. And you know what? It hits your stop loss, and it's gonna hit your stop loss because the robots know what they're doing.
Yep.
And it's gonna shoot back up.
Every time.
Whatever. But what can you do?
The one time you don't set a stop loss is the time it doesn't stop, right? And it just keeps going down, and then you get fucked. So
yeah, and then that's the other thing I would give a good piece of advice for your audience, is that understand that most of the volatility, they always need leverage traders to lose money. Okay, so that means that nothing's going to go straight up or straight down or too much before it's going to have a little boom down or a boom up, because they're trying to liquidate people.
Yeah.
You have to imagine like this Wizard of Oz on the other side that's looking at all the orders and going and constantly evaluating, like you said before. And it's true. And it's crazy. And with the AI today, I can only imagine how advanced it is. They know if they tick up and they know where the stop losses are, okay, we're going to do these. You ever see those candles that just go, like, we see them on Bitcoin, we see them on Ethereum, they just go down like a ridiculous thin line, like $1,000 down, let's say, right? We saw that happen when it was 18,000. Went to 17,000, back to 18.2 in the matter of seconds, right? Well, what happened there? Well, it liquidated everybody's position on the way down. 5 seconds later, boom.
Well, and I think that people don't realize, like, the order books at every single exchange across all markets is different. So the fact that the price remains the same is due to oracles and price arbitrage bots, basically, that are buying on one exchange, selling on another, and or vice versa to keep the prices intact. So like the trade only has to happen on one exchange to send the price down, but then it impacts the entire fucking industry. So it'll just keep liquidating people until it eventually runs out of money, and then it goes back up and goes the other way. But I want to talk to you about the idea of the WAGMI thing. We're all going to make it, right? You know, we had, what was it, Randy Zuckerberg doing the fucking cover song from, what was it, Def Leppard, I think. But like, trading isn't WAGMI. We can't all make it. It's a zero-sum game. Some are going to win, some are going to lose, right? But, you know, the longer you are in the market, the more opportunity you have either direction. But, like, it's literally impossible. If I'm trading against you, I'm winning or I'm losing, and you're winning or you're losing. It's not both, right? So you have to set your strategy, you have to have your rules, and you have to take profit, because I think a lot of people held too long. They all bought into the diamond hands, you know, hold for the moon, you know, and definitely that worked out in some people's favor. But I think in a lot of people, and people I know, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars down from their all-time highs, that because they held too long, right? So I never feel bad for taking profit ever. And I used to. I'm like, fuck. Like I bought Safe Moon, got lucky, week one, $80 in, peaked out at 11,000 US dollars. I was newish to crypto, no fucking clue. I'm like, wow, it's going to millions. I'm just going to let it ride. And then I think I walked out with like, I don't know, 3K, which is still a fucking awesome trade, but it's 4 times less than what I was looking at, you know, only weeks before, because I just held too long. So I don't know.
NFTs, like there's an app called Vivi, okay, and so I on that there's first editions. So I have like Spider-Man, and I have like Elsa, and I have like Darth Vader, first edition NFTs, right? So I got in this, and I bought Elsa. It was the most I ever paid for an NFT. I bought for 700 US. It went to 4,500 in about 3 weeks, right? I had what other ones? Iron Man went to about 3,000 something. I bought for 60. Homer Simpson, first edition, with strangling Bart, very very violent but funny thing. And parents don't do this at home. But now I bought for 60, and went also like, you know, a couple of thousand. And my whole account, I put about close to $1,500 in, and I was about 24,000, right? I didn't sell any of it. None of it. It's worth 1,300 today.
Oh my god.
I like 20 something thousand US in, and then I was like, what am I doing? Like, why? And I was like, but it's just interesting, because you analyze it. You're like, why didn't I have any stop losses? Like, why didn't I sell Elsa at like a 3x? You know, and how greedy was I that I had things that were like 50x's, and I was like, how could I have? But it's human nature. Like, how could I be so stupid, right? Like,
I think you get stuck in the echo chambers of the telegrams and the Discord groups, though, and everyone's so hyped, and it can never go down. But you always have to remember there were people there before you that are making way more money than you're making, that are going to take profit when it gets to whatever their number is, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then I think what happened too is that, and this happens to me in crypto as well, as I'm a believer. Okay, and there's 2 points. A true crypto person, it's not about trading. It's not about accumulating. It's not about getting more money. It's not about the profit. It's none of it. It's the real people in crypto is about stopping what happened with the financial crisis in 2008, and the power of the banks, and what happened with Lehman Brothers, and people getting wiped out. We have all these right now is a very tough time for people because of the inflation, stuff like that. Look at banks, record profits. When all these things were going bad, record profits. Everybody's suffering. The bank is your friend. The bank, I don't want to use the word hate, because I just don't use that word, but I really, really strongly dislike banks. I always have. You go to, think of it, bank, and they used to have these commercials way back before my time. Bank is your friend, right? So it's like this. So like, Kyle, you and I are friends, right? And I say, hey, I say, Kyle, can I borrow $100 from you? I'll give you back, $100.05. You're like, all right, dude, I guess if you need the $100, here you go.
Yeah.
A few months later, you say, hey, Andrew, man, can I borrow $100? I say, no problem. You pay me back 120. That's not a friend.
That's a good analogy. That's just the way it is too. I mean, now in these interest rate levels, you might be able to get 3 or 4% if you're lucky, but for the last 10 years, it's been 0.5 or lower.
And then sovereignty, right? Like, do you control your money? Like I have, like I said, I'm majority with TD Bank. So I say, like, with TD Bank, okay, like they could just go and, as we saw our wonderful leader do with the whole truckers, and just flip a button. Now I have no money. But now we're in Canada, okay, and we live in a very, very good country, and a lot of good banking laws and stuff like that, better than the States, that's for sure. But look at these other countries, like look at Sri Lanka, look at these things where they just got, like, last year, their money's like, they're done. They're just bankrupt, right? Finished. Now, anyone that had any Bitcoin or any Ethereum is good.
Yep.
Has an escape plan. You could have had whatever, I don't remember the name of their currency, but you could have had their dollars, and it happened, many South American countries, happened in Greece, it happened, I mean, a lot all over the world, and in Lebanon, you have these things where, bank runs, let's timestamp this, and in the future, there will be a bank run in the United States within I don't know, but a short amount of time. There will be a bank run once people realize that, and I think this is what opened my eyes when I saw FTX. And it's something, again, it's going to sound very obvious, but all the numbers are just numbers on a computer screen, and nothing is real anymore. And there's no money. There's no money. I hate to tell you this to the average person. It's not there. If I'm not talking about everybody asking for their money, I'm talking about a very small percentage of people. United States. I'm not saying about Canada, because it's different banking laws, but United States, because there was fractional reserve banking, right, which is already bad, so holding 25 cents on a dollar and whatever, right? But then in COVID times 2020, they got rid of fractional reserve completely. So now it's based on absolutely nothing. So what would you rather have? And think of a kid with hockey cards, right? Limited edition hockey cards. It's the easiest way to think of it, right? So you have X amount of hockey cards, X amount of Wayne Gretzky rookie cards, X amount of Mario Lemieux or Sidney Crosby for the younger audience rookie cards. You only have so many that are printed, right? If you have too many printed, the more you have printed, the less it's worth. If you have unlimited, well, it's worth absolutely nothing, right? And so what would you rather have, like a finite supply of 21 million, right, Bitcoin? Or would you rather have a supply of infinitely printable things, which are fiat currency by definition, Wikipedia or whatever, is valueless, has value only on the fact that we give it value. It is, in the future, they're going to be studying back and going, how did you guys, I don't understand. So you had this currency that was actually nothing, based on nothing, but the belief that it had something, and they said that's what you use, and we'll be trying to explain why. And this will be when cryptocurrency and our grandkids and all this stuff trying to explain in history books how we could be using a currency that has absolutely no value and everyone knows it.
I think most of our audience, I hope, understands how this all works, but I would say that 95% of the population doesn't understand how fiat currency is created and what underpins it. Because trust, for me, not enough. I mean, it's great that banks offer insurance, but insurance of something that's constantly inflating due to government printing, and is, you wonder why we're looking at, 7, 8, 9% inflation month over month for the last, 8, 9 months. It's pretty simple. When you increase the supply, you decrease the value. So things get more expensive because there's more money in the system. And it's not a hard concept to understand, but I don't think people realize that the bank that this money is drawn on is literally an empty bank account. And you just go, okay, I need, $65 million to fund this infrastructure project because I said I was going to do it. Boop. Okay. Goes over to the government and then they spend it however they want. And I don't want to say there's no oversight, but the impact that us as citizens has on this is really only in who we elect to manage this. And the Federal Reserve itself is not an elected board. Like it's a private entity separate from the federal government. And this is true for all Federal Reserves, Canadian, US, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, for example, that have been constantly printing for years and years and years now. And it's just driving the money into the ground. But this is an argument I have with a lot of, I don't want to say argue, but like when I'm trying to talk to people about crypto, because like my family it's not they don't care, it's just they're not really interested. They don't want to think about this sort of thing, but they're like, well, it's nothing. It's just numbers on a screen. And I'm like, what is your bank account other than nothing? Just bank numbers on a screen. They're like, well, yeah, I can spend it. I'm like, well, yeah, I can spend it. Like there's realistically no difference between the two, except mine is actually backed by like hash rate, computing power, technology. investment in that technology and the energy that goes into it. Whereas this one was created, by typing numbers into a blank check at somebody's computer screen. So it's a little unnerving, and like it's something I'm going to educate my kids on as they get older. And I'm not going to scare them when they're, in elementary school, but I do want them to at least understand what it is and understand why or what the alternatives are out there. And maybe I like Bitcoin. Maybe it's not the answer, but there is going to be an answer, and some sort of hedge against all this. And it's going to be up to us, the populace, the global populace, to actually adopt it and use it. And I think we're seeing that more and more, especially with Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. But also the strength of the US dollar has been super, super strong this year, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? If you look at it, and the DXY, what I'm referring to as US dollar compared to a basket of other currencies, because everyone had to print during COVID, right? So, but that world currency, the currency used for oil and all that stuff, that is, I don't know if you saw that, it was just a couple of weeks ago, where China made a deal, right, with Saudi Arabia, and all those countries was Russia and China and Saudi Arabia and I think India, and there's like three, and some like maybe Brazil or some, I don't know, some South American countries as well, and they're all trying to make this like new dollar, right, new standard. Basically, everybody to push out, like, depending on how you see it, but like the bullying of the US dollar, right, on these, like, that's why Sri Lanka went bankrupt. It just couldn't, in comparison to the US dollar. So they made this deal where they could buy oil and not exchange it, because it used to be you had to exchange everything to US dollars first, and then, right, so they're just set. But the fall of the US dollar, I think it most definitely will be in our lifetime. And I don't want it. I don't wish it. I don't like all this stuff. I don't want, because we're in Canada. It's going to have an extreme effect on us as well. But there are certain things that will, the other thing that's very interesting when we're talking about trading and options and money is everything's cyclical, right? Everything. And you start looking at Elliott waves, and you start looking at cycles, and shit, man, 10-year cycles, 50-year cycles, 100-year cycles, 800 years, like there's crazy 1,000-year cycles. And you start looking at all these things, and it's really, really interesting, because it's like these spirals, right? Like, and they keep ones within the other and overlapping on the other. And that's like Fibonacci, right? And understanding that why does that make sense, right? Because partially it doesn't make sense. It's hard to explain Fibonacci. I cannot explain why Fibonacci retracements will work, in trading, really.
I just know that they're magic lines on a chart that it's got to have something to do with human psychology, and like this is the level at which some of the populace be like, okay, that's good enough for me, and then it goes up from there or down.
I mean, I understand how Fibonacci is used in nature, and in it's found everywhere in the proportion of a leaf or a tree trunk or a, it's one of those things like pi. It's like one of those magic, numbers that, if people understood, or like the number 9 or whatever, like Tesla would say, right? Like understanding these certain things, there's a lot of magic. And I think that's one of the things too, I'll just go on a quick tangent, is that we have this idea, or this ego collectively, that because we have computers and internet, that we know everything. And I think we really don't know everything at all. And I think there's this kind of weakness that comes from that arrogance.
It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything kind of sentiment. I realized as I got older that, like, I thought I was, it's like typical teenagers, early 20s, like, I know everything, right? And then 10 years later, I'm like, what the fuck? I was a child. I knew nothing. And now I realize I still know nothing in comparison. But I'm curious. Like, I'm a curious person. I want to know shit. And I want to, like, oh, okay, let's go down here and see what's over there. And let's go down here. But a lot of people lack that curiosity, I think. And they just don't want to, they're comfortable. And they're not willing to go out of those boundaries that they've given themselves.
People don't like to talk about money. That's, right? So it's one of those, like, family dinner taboo things, right? Nobody's going to talk about money. No one's going to say, it's super rude, right? Like to say, like, hey, like, and go like, hey man, how much do you have in your bank account? Or like, how much did you make last year? Like, nobody talks like that. Nobody is going to say that. And that's fine. And that's okay. And it's private information. But understand when bought into what I was saying before, if you really bought into crypto, really bought into Bitcoin, you'd understand that it's to fight the power of the banks, the corruption of the banks. There's great phrases like the Fed, and it's like some old man deciding like how much our groceries are going to go up or how much my mortgage is going to go up, and it seems almost arbitrary. And it seems like these people they're morons. So they say like straight up, like you can see all the clips because we have all the information. Transitory. Remember that? Transitory.
Inflation is transitory. Yeah.
Right. And then you would see that not in one channel. You'd see that any channel you flip and any single thing and any reporter, they would just repeat the same thing. Sheeple, right? Just sheep, just transitory, until it wasn't. Temporary until it wasn't.
Right.
Not a big impact until it wasn't. And then you're like, but like, how could you not see it? Back to the hockey cards. Like, how could you not see?
I think they do see it though, and I think I don't know if it's trying to break us into the idea of something coming and then being like, oh, we were mistaken, it's here, because they're doing the same thing now with recession, right? You look at any statistic, the definition of recession is negative GDP growth for 2 consecutive quarters, which I think we've seen already. But now they're talking maybe in 2023 we'll experience a recession. It's like, look around you. Yeah. And then you've got this is for the Canadian folk, but like our central bankers talking about like employment hasn't gone up enough, so we're not at max pain yet. It's like, you are the ones causing the inflation. You are the ones now causing people to undergo the pain of these increased, interest rates, and then they're going to lose their jobs on top of it, and that's when you'll be happy. Yeah. It's like, why did we get here in the first place? Why can't we just be fiscally responsible and do the right thing? We can't please everyone in this situation, and some people need to take sort of personal responsibility as opposed to just looking to the government to pay for everything, because it's not free. My kids are paying for that. My grandkids will be paying for that, and it's just kicking the can down the road.
Absolutely. They say, what is money? Money is debt. Create a dollar, you create a dollar of debt. And then the question is, well, who's that debt owed to?
Yep. Right. You see the central bank with the first loss on their balance statement in the last report there in history, because they've just printed too much, and like where does it go? It doesn't go anywhere.
But have you seen that documentary with Ray Dalio when he's talking about it's about 45 minutes long, and he's talking about all the different throughout history empires that like boom and bust of all the different empires. It's really, really interesting.
I don't think I've seen that one, but I've seen some other content similar.
Okay, so it's super, super well done, and he's just showing that like the average length of an empire, how the dollar, the same thing happened in history, the same reason every other like major superpower at their time went from this boom to bust, right? And I'm not going to explain it. It's very long. We can maybe find a link or something to put it so people can check that out, or just type in Ray Dalio boom bust cycles, something like that. Anyways, they're showing that U.S. it's exactly what's happened, and he shows it 4 times before in history. And he gives just 4 or 5 examples of that happening, exactly that. And there comes a point where you got to print more, and then you got to pull back because you realize, and then there's only one final step left, is to really print more, right? Because you're done. You painted yourself in a corner, so you can't even though you're pulling back the reins. So what is it? It has to you have to raise interest rates above inflation, right? That's the only way to pull it back. Meaning that they're talking about like 5 being, which is right, very, very high for what we've experienced in the last little while. We're not talking about the 80s or something here, but and if you say, okay, so what are they supposed to do? Like, supposed to bring up like interest rates to like 11? Like 12, like what do you like, who can sustain that, right? And
especially after a decade-long melt-up in the housing market, like you're talking average Canadian families are losing their houses all across the country, right?
Absolutely. And you see, people say to me, and a good argument for all us crypto people is like when they're like, oh, look at crypto, your Bitcoin, my uncle, whatever, have his little laugh. You were wrong. I told you so. Okay. Yeah, his stock. So he's this big stock guy. His stocks got destroyed, right? So
oh my God, it pisses me off so much. Like I get a text from like family, like, you okay? Like I saw the market went down. I'm like, have you checked your portfolio recently? It's fucking cut in half. Like
exactly. And let's look at the other scenario. Okay, I was too scared to get in stocks, let's say, and I was too scared to get into crypto. So I took it and I put it underneath my mattress. I lost 30%.
Yep.
buying power by putting it on MetaMask. Yeah, you still got it. You got it. Okay, don't get me wrong. Yeah, that was the best. The best thing you could have done this year was bury it underneath your mattress, right? Given, yeah, I get it. It does happen. There are these booms and bust cycles and things like that. And yes, it's so clear with the COVID money. Man, if we could go back, it's just so obvious what the price of Bitcoin and how the NFTs got pumped and how there was just so much money flowing.
Oh, and it wasn't that. Collectibles, too. I've got a binder of Pokemon cards kind of next to my desk here. And the same thing with Magic the Gathering. We saw all of those things, 20x from what their historical sort of averages were. And then all of a sudden they crashed. It's well, yeah, because you've injected so much money into the system that it just ballooned everything. I actually, in April, I think it was April 2021, I wrote a post on Reddit in the our cryptocurrency group about inflation and how I'm you guys better buckle up, because when the US was doing their stimulus printing, I'm the difference between stimulus and normal government printing is where it goes, right? Because a lot of the government printing ends up at the banks and they do what they want with it, but they usually use it to create back loans basically and give it out, and then it creates spending in the economy. But when you hand money to people like us or, people that are struggling, they just buy the stuff that they need. But if that's increased demand on the stuff that they need, then that means prices are going to go through the roof. So it's I don't know how anyone didn't see this coming, but I got crushed. That post got locked for controversial views at the time.
Wow.
Because they're this guy's nuts. But there was 3,000 people arguing on this Reddit thread that I put up that nah, inflation's going to be fine. Here we are a year later sitting at fucking 9%. It's... The writing was on the wall, right? But here's the thing. I used to listen to this podcast called Peak Prosperity. A couple guys, they put out good sort of how to take basically responsibility for your own life financially, but also in things like growing a garden or learning some useful skills and applying them into your life just for more fulfillment. And they were talking about how they project their message, because this guy spent basically from 2008 or not, it was before that. It was 2004 to 2007 being guys, something's going wrong here. And he was giving PowerPoint presentations at church basements and legions. And he'd have friends over, gather around, friends. I'm going to tell you about the monetary system. And they would be just what the fuck's this guy doing? They wouldn't receive the message. And it's the same thing. It's if you were sitting at Christmas dinner saying, did you know that our monetary system has reset approximately every 40 to 50 years? And we're hovering around 50 years right now. So we're on the brink of a potential economic reset. Well, nobody's going to want to hear what you have to say, even though it's important information, right? So there has to be this education process over years, kind of breaking down people's views of things, or at least getting them to sort of consider the idea that maybe they should be paying attention to this type of thing because it's very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, back to a quick thing, exactly what you're saying. And if you look at technical analysis, they always say you have at least 3 indicators that match up, right? So you can look at, RSI is below 14. I'm all in, you're gonna use a few different things. Okay, got a volume here. This lines up. This is, these bands are going tight. There's Fibonacci's there, and okay, this looks like a good risk reward scenario, right? So it's that kind of thing too. When you look at the U.S. and you look at the cycles and you look at, well, it's not just, there's canary in the coal mine, and I really think that the gift was FTX. That was the canary in the coal mine to show us, hey, you know what? This guy tricked Bill Clinton. This guy tricked, Kevin Leary. This guy tricked all these people. You name it. Just it's so long, the list of very, very, very smart people. And how is this so? How is he going around? He just stole. And where is all this stolen money? And then you said, well, what do you believe? You believe that any of the numbers on any of your screens? I remember going to my local bank here and asking for $2,000, and this is so I live in a very close, a very, very affluent part. Okay, it's called Westmount. It's a very, very affluent part of Montreal, and I went to the bank there. They didn't have $2,000.
Yep.
$2,000. I was watching another video. This guy just the other day, and he's saying he brought 50 grand to the bank. They were they didn't know what to do. You know?
They treat him like a terrorist.
He asked for 50 grand. They were nobody has this money. Like, what do you mean? He wanted 50 grand cash. And then it's what he did, because he's a funny guy. He brought $1 million cash. Okay. He brought it into the bank in a duffel bag alone, $1 million. And he put it on the counter and he said, "I'd like to make a deposit, please." And they were like, what do you mean? And it's like, he's like, "I have $1 million, you know?" And they're like, he goes, "Literally, they had to close the bank. They were nervous." He goes, "They shut the bank down."
Oh my God.
Asked, "Do you have any escort like to leave?" He said, "No, I'm going on a plane and I'm leaving. Like, I need to deposit it." He goes, just to show it, like, they don't even know what to do with money anymore. Like, and I'm talking about here in a super affluent where the average house prices, you know, in Westbound is about, you know, $3 million, right? And they range from 3 to 10, 12 million dollars. They don't have $2,000. I said to the lady, and this is literally a quote, because it's a few years ago too, so it's probably way worse now. And I said to her, I find it very, very disturbing that you don't have $2,000, you know, in this part. And then she said, I said, "Is there nothing you can do to help me?" She said, "No, you have to make an appointment."
Yeah, you have to order it.
2,000. I understand if it was like 20,000. Okay, I get it. $2,000. So you don't have $2,000. And you know what I said to her? I said, you know, I find it very interesting. And I said, you know, I bet the local paper is also going to find it equally interesting, and all the people around here, that you don't even have $2,000. You know. And then she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Give me a moment. Give me a moment." Went to talk to the manager. Changed on my withdrawal from the bank machine that I could pull out X amount. Gave me bro, they had to like do all this dog and pony show to give me
check the couch cushions in the lobby.
Yeah. Temporarily think the card could pull more out of the machine and this machine and that. I know that for $2,000, I'm sorry, this is a huge, huge problem. And I would say there will be a saying back, and we can timestamp this. There will be a bank run. It will not be pretty. And you know, there's keep money in crypto, but on your USB key, you know, away from exchanges, like we all know by now. Unfortunately, you know, but it's easier said than done. I'll say it, I'm guilty of it. I still have a little bit of money, on exchanges because
for shame.
Me, because you know why? It's not out of laziness. It's nerve wracking. Moving money on USB keys is nerve wracking. Okay, if you screw up, you forget a password, you lose a thing. It's very, very stressful. Very, very stressful.
Yeah, I talked to in episode 4, I think it was, with my buddy Sam from Veracity Audits about this and how we're never going to get adoption until it's much less nerve wracking. Because even in the last, I would say 4 months, like I fucked up a transaction, sent it to a contract address instead of the wallet that it was supposed to go to, right? And I'm hosting a podcast about cryptocurrency, right? So if people like me are still fucking up, or I know people that have clicked on scam contracts or scam websites and then boom, everything's gone, right? It's just too easy for that to happen right now.
Oh my God. It's, you know, like it's the way that when you see about an email, you know, like when you get spam emails, like it's super obvious, right? When you see a spam email, you just know right away because it's just the font isn't right or whatever. Something's off about it, right? But I remember with like, you know, my grandfather, he passed away now, but when he was alive, he used to sign up every month for Norton Security for a year contract every month, because every month they would send him your subscription is almost up.
Oh no.
They click here to ensure you're protected. So he'd pull out, and he's a smart man. He's like 85, right? So he'd pull out his credit card, and it's like $30. So he was quite a wealthy man too. So he's like, okay, well, I want my computer to protect me. And he paid. I'd be like, Grab, you can stop paying. You're paying every month for a year. He just keeps paying for this subscription because he can't. And that's a legit thing, but an illegit thing where he can't tell the difference. Where, you know, somebody younger can just right away, boom, boom. But what's the difference? It's almost hard to describe. If you're going to describe to somebody else, how do you know right away it's illegitimate? And then these guys, they're masters now with AI and NFTs and scams. I mean, I got scammed on an NFT, and it was a site. It looked legit. It was from Twitter, and they had taken over an account that had hundreds of thousands of followers, right? So it had hundreds of thousands of followers, all these likes, all these things.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, it's for sure it's legit. I connected my wallet, and it's like, okay, connect, and I hit connect, and it's just like it's stolen on my NFTs, and I was just like, oh man, you know. And I was just like, but like, I'm not going to cry over it. I was just like, that's upsetting, So I just went to Discord and just, told, hey, guys, be careful, because it looks so super legit, and I was tired. They caught me off guard, man. I was tired. I was about to go to bed. I was, just half sleepy. I shouldn't have been, clicking on anything, and they got me. It happens.
It does happen, but I do foresee a time where trust and transparency is going to grow, and I think that that's probably actually going to lead the next wave as we see more and more people turning their cameras on, more and more people actually owning the project that they're working on, or, putting their personal stamp on something, because if they fuck up, they're toast, right? And I don't think necessarily you need to dox for every project. I think there's good reasons not to in certain cases, but I also think that people will be less and less trusting of teams that are anonymous in the crypto sphere. I think that worked to get us where we are, but I think that will cap out at a user base that is comfortable with that level of risk. And if we want to get that next level of, users that's like sort of maybe medium risk instead of the high, super high risk people that are here now, it's going to take a little bit more trust.
Yeah, that's it. But, to win big, you got to bet big. And
hey, we're here early, right? And that's what it comes down to, is we're taking the risk.
I say I've been in since, 2018, and I seen a lot. I've seen a lot in 4 years. I saw my account go from whatever, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was around three and a half, 4,000 down to $600. I never sold, and I watched that 6,000 go up to 14,000. So just watched it. It was all on Binance, and but that's the kind of what is your risk tolerance? How can you do it? I remember asking, it's just as a silly thing. So just so put in context, and don't do this at home. But I remember at the bank, there was the guy I was asking, it would always annoy me, because I've done, I did my CFA level 1, and I've done all these finance courses, and the guy's like 20 years old, with a tie that his mommy helped him put on in the morning. And he's trying to tell me how I should invest, right? Yeah. So I'm telling him, listen, grab this, put it here, put this for my RSP, put it in that. And he's trying to tell me not to, right? And I put it in precious metals, and it did extremely well. I more than doubled my money. I put it in when it was all the metals were down. And so why would you do this? And I said, because it's down. You don't buy something when it's way up. You buy it when it's beaten senseless down to nothing. So I bought it on precious metals. I doubled my money. I used that money actually has helped the down payment on my condo. So it went super well. So this guy's trying to tell me, and he says, so he pulls out this paper, and he goes, so how would you describe your risk tolerance? This 20-year-old puke punk, with his little tie. And I'm like, dude, in my head, I'm like, you have no idea, what you're talking about. You just got your degree, last week, and got this job at the bank. And I wanted to be respectful, everyone's got to start somewhere. But I don't know. He just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was in a weird mood, and I just told him. I said, "Listen," I said, "with my RSP, I said, I'll give you this as so you can understand my risk tolerance." I said, "I'll take my whole RSP right now, and I'll bet it on a dog. If we have 2 dogs here, okay, I'll bet my entire RSP that my dog will outrace your dog." And I go, "Even if we have 2 dogs, I'll let you pick which dog you want."
Oh my God.
Double or nothing. I swear to you, Kyle, he put down, rat that, edit that. He put down his he put down his piece of paper. He stopped asking me questions. He said, "Okay, what do you want to do?"
It's crazy though, and this is no disrespect to financial advisors, because I think they do a lot of people a lot of good service, but my RSP is more like, and for US listeners, this essentially the equivalent of a 401k for terms that you're familiar with. I like index funds. I like hands-off sort of dividend producing. They're going to grow over time. They're slow burners. Those are high risk in the eyes of the bank. And I'm like, how is buying literally the maximum diversified stock option available the high risk category? And I have a hunch that it's because the expense ratio of the index funds is less than 1% versus their balanced 30-year, whatever product that's operating at a 3.5% fucking management expense ratio. And that's how they make their money. They're trying to sell you a product. And I think as much as they are trying to advise you for the betterment of your financial future, you really also have to keep in mind that they are there to make money as well. And when you have to pay them 3.5% for the privilege of potentially earning 5%, you're really only making 1.5% at the end of the day, which is less than inflation. So people really need to sort of understand investments and not just entirely rely on somebody else's advice about what they should do with their money.
Absolutely. And I'll put on, you explained it very, very well there, but just to use an analogy that makes it very, very simplified is, and I try to tell to people all the time. So I used to work at Future Shop, right? Many, many years ago. And we worked on commission. Now every week, depending on the sale price and whatever, the commission would change on the products. I worked in televisions. So a television could pay you $50 for selling this TV, but then there's a $20 off the TV. But for some reason now that television's paying you $15 instead of $50, right? So you got to know these things. So every Thursday I would study every single change of every single thing. I knew every single margin of every single product that came in. And so when people come to me and they're like, oh yeah, the guy at the store told me I should get this, I'm like, and this is like, there's a lot of, commission-based jobs out there. I'm like, the guy told you, so you trust the guy who told you. I said, the guy's going to tell you whatever's going to pay him the most.
Right.
So if anything, you should do exactly what he tells you not like to do. You should do the opposite, right? Because I'm pointing at people at the highest margin, because that's my job, was to do that. I mean, given I have integrity, I always have. So I'd explain them, and I wouldn't, I would stay within boundaries. I would never sell a bad product. At the time, there was some bad products at huge margins that pay well. I can't sleep right if I do that. So I'm not going to go to an extreme, but the average person, that's the way it's set up. So if it's a commission based, I mean, with buying cars, I mean, be careful, be careful. And if with banks, the same way, they're going to push you in a certain direction. When I went to get my, this was 2 years ago, I locked in my interest rate at 1.69, right? And which is pretty good.
You
right?
nailed it, sir.
Right?
When you say you don't buy the top or the bottom, that's a lie. You got
pretty
that one.
Good, right? Pretty good.
Yeah.
So I came to the bank and I had to pay, because I had 1 year left in a 5-year mortgage. And I said, look, I want to get out of this last year, of it. And they said, well, you're going to have to pay $2,000 to break it. So I did the math. I said, no problem. I'll pay the $2,000. It sucks, but whatever. So I paid the $2,000 so that I can lock in this 1.69. I wanted for 5. They ended up giving me for 4, but whatever. So I tell them this. They said, yeah. So the person says, okay. They do other things. I pay them their $2,000, and they said, okay. And then I this is where the shocking part comes in. The person, the teller, the person who's assisting me turns and says to me, I really think, do you want fixed or variable? I really think you should get a variable. And I'm like, what? And they're like, and they pull out this piece of paper and they said, over 80% of the time a variable, beats, you'll save money. And I just said, but I just paid you $2,000 so I could get a fixed. Like I just did that. Like right now, so that I could get fixed at 1.69. Like I couldn't. I was beside myself, man.
Yeah.
I was just, what do you say to that? This is the incompetency of someone at the bank. So I trust a person at the bank. I trust a person. Don't trust anybody. Okay, don't like. I have my YouTube channel, and I want to tie that in. Thank you very much. I don't know when this is going to be out, but today we're recording is the 29th of December. And so on this Saturday will be you featured on my 90 Seconds of Wisdom, and you being the host of it, which is just a 90-second clip of you dropping some wisdom about finance. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That. Yeah, that's really cool. So anyways, just don't trust anyone. Don't trust me. Don't trust Rad Dad. Don't trust anybody, because just do, we're all giving ideas. We're giving our best perspective. Do your own research. They always say nonstop in crypto, right? Do your own research, do IOR, do your own research. But truly in everything, don't trust, and I see this because I see my parents being taken advantage here and there, and just, and they're just because they're kind people, right? And I see people trying to take advantage of me all the time. And I am a very kind person. very loving, but when push comes to shove, I'm also a salesman. So I also go, I can go on defense mode and attack mode, right? And unfortunately, each one of us needs to be, and we need to look at everybody. Okay, I'll put it in a better way. What I do when I want to do a major purchase, whether it's a car or I bought like a mattress or a house or something, I ask everybody I know that I respect that knows something about that and get their advice, and I listen to all of their advice and I take it all, and then I sit back in a dark room and I think, what is the best choice for me, right?
Yep.
And I don't listen to what so-and-so or so-and-so. The other thing is, remember who you're listening to. Somebody who could be the greatest dentist in the world doesn't mean they know about investing money. Yeah. Somebody could be the greatest investor in the world doesn't mean they know about, growing plants. So be careful who you listen to, who you take advice on, and know that some of these guys, I mean, I follow the top guys, Altcoin Daily, BitBoy, wonderful, wonderful channels, wonderful people. They were wrong, man. They were wrong. They all said going to 100 grand. All of them said 100 grand. And BitBoy even said, I had it marked for a year and a half in my phone, the top of the market, and he was right. And it said, sell all your cryptocurrency. Okay. And it was in my phone. It was November something of last year. Sell everything, it said. And I even told my brother, I said, this is because a year and a half prior, that's where, because Ben from BitBoy Crypto predicted the top of the market last time. And a year and a half before this date, he predicted this top. And I said, okay, I'm going to sell everything because he was right last time. And I didn't do it because he said I was wrong. We're going to 100 grand. And I'm like, oh, God, what? Like, it's so, look, it happens. And it's also like, I would say also just certain buckets. So I have certain percentage of my RSPs in dividend, stocks. And I make my dividends every month, and they compound and they compound. And that's like my safe vehicles. I call them machines. I had another machine that was called Celsius.
That one broke down pretty hard.
Yeah. But they got me. But why did I put money into Celsius, right? Because Desjardins here, Montreal, Quebec firm, put $400 million into Celsius. $400 million. So I put in my little amount of money because I said, if this is a bank that did their due diligence, that's really willing to put $400 million, I think I'll be safe putting my little amount. And I was wrong. Yep. And I even said, and I discussed with my brother, I said, I don't understand how this really works. How can they pay out? Listen, I don't get it. Like, how can they pay out this? They can lend you at this. It was like the opposite of a bank. It's like they'll give you 4%, but they'll lend it to you at 0.1%. I'm like, this doesn't really make sense to me, So I don't know. Anyways, it is what it is, and you live and learn. But that, and did I get hurt on that? Yeah, absolutely, I got hurt on that. But again, risk tolerance. I didn't take my mortgage money. I didn't take my food money. I didn't take my, like you got to put in different buckets. And there's a guy named T. Harv Eker, and he's got the greatest. I don't know. Do you know? Are you familiar with?
I don't know.
He had this book, and he has this way, and it's called I can't remember what it is, the 5 buckets of wealth, and people have used this all over the world. It's fantastic. So it's literally, you can start with $1, $10, doesn't matter what it is, and you put in, and I'm gonna butcher it, but whatever. Like, just basically, you take, let's say you have $1, you take like 10 cents towards entertainment. You take 10 cents towards like long-term savings. You take 40% for your necessities or whatever, and it has just broken down into these 5 buckets. I think it's 5, might be 4, who knows. Anyways, you look at those buckets and you break it down, and no matter what you do, and there's people that have used this, starting off with literally like nothing, and use this method and made it to $1 million using this method of like short-term, long-term, emergency, necessity, and there's one for entertainment, and there's one for charity. So it's like you give 5% away or whatever it was.
I'll dig up a link on that and drop in the show notes because it sounds like a powerful tool.
It is. So something that in that I'll say it on my channel, and maybe on one of the last points of wisdom. When you want money, give money away. Right? It's the most counterintuitive thing. What you need when you really need money, just find somewhere to give it away and help somebody else. Right? So.
You shared an example with me off camera once about your situation with that. Do you want to just wrap up this show with that story?
Yeah, sure. Like my last $50. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I'll make it quick. I'll give you the Cole's Notes version. But yeah, so I once in my life I did a lot of music, as we spoke about before. So I was very poor for a very very long time, and at one point I had $50 left to my name, and literally I had a $50 bill. Don't ask me why. I didn't have 10 fives. I had a $50 bill, and I had nothing else, and no money in my bank account, no credit card, nothing. And I said, what should I do with this $50? So I sat back and I said, I could buy. My first thought was a ground beef, bagels. This things that we have that you can pasta can get. Really go far on for very little amount of money. And then I was like, nah, think more, think deeper, think higher, higher vibration. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give it away. I'm going to give all of it away, right? So I had $50 bill. So I went and I used at the time. Long story short, I was taking kung fu. There was a really nice guy. And he used to help, big heart, and he used to help street kids as well. So I went and I drove with my very little gas left in my car, and I drove to meet him. And I didn't tell him anything. I just said, here's $50. I said, I want you to use it to help a street kid, whatever, any kid, help a kid to pay for lessons and whatever, so that they could benefit from discipline and help their life. He said, yeah, absolutely. Great. Nice to see you. And I didn't take Kung Fu for a while there, but, I spent 2 years there anyway taking lessons. So I knew the guy quite well. I knew he had a lot of integrity. So I left there. I gave my last $50, and driving back. And as I'm driving back, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who said, I just opened a hip hop studio and I have a job for you, and I'd love you to produce for me. And you can start today if you want. Come right down to the studio and I'll start paying you today. And I ended up working there. That's the one I was talking at the beginning of the channel. I worked for about 2 to 3 years, about 3 years. Yeah, this hip hop studio.
That's amazing. The universe provides.
Yeah. So how much faith, absolutely, how much faith you have in yourself, in the universe, in the system, and know that it's money is energy, right? So, see it that way, I guess.
A remarkable man, sir. Done some wild stuff in your life, but you turned out okay. Thank
you. One of the nicest things anyone's ever said. So.
Yeah. Like, hey, Mom, watch this. I turned out okay. But no, I just want to thank you. I mean, this was epic. I learned a ton. And why don't you tell everybody about a bit about your channel? I'll of course drop all the links in the show notes below so people can link over to you and check out. But you pump out a video a week, which is wild enough as it is. But please share.
So really, really quick. I started at the beginning of COVID, and it's been about 2 years or so. Every Saturday I put out a video, and it's just a 90-second video. So it's called 90 Seconds of Wisdom, the channel. And sometimes it goes up to 2.5 minutes, but generally it's about 90 seconds. And I usually just share like what I am thinking about or meditating on, like a lesson for that week, just to help people out. So I think I've about 150 videos now, which is pretty good. And lately I've been getting people to guest host, because I was like everyone to share. I know everybody has so much unique life experience and wisdom. So I get other people to share their wisdom. So Rad Dad was a guest on my show, and will be coming out this in a couple of days. So that'll be December, whatever, 31st of 2022. So you can check out episode. And so I just do it to help people. And that's also, I talk often about spiritual wealth and physical wealth. And so I don't make any money from it. It actually costs me money to do it and time, but I do it to help people, try to spread as much love and fill the spiritual bank. So yeah, just remember to fill both, fill the spiritual bank, fill the physical bank, be happy, enjoy the journey, as Rad says. And just smile, man. Just find a reason to smile every day.
Beautiful. Great advice, man. I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, man. All right.
Take care. Well, Rad fam, that'll just about do it for episode 7 of the Rad Dow podcast. Thank you, Andrew, for coming on, because honestly, we probably could have talked for like another 2 hours without missing a beat. So we will have to do it again sometime in the very near future, my friend. Thank you. One more time, if you could make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel and hitting that like button, let's get this video to 50 likes. Pretty low bar. I think we can do it. and share it with your friends and family that may have an interest in what's going on in the world around them when it comes to their finances. If you're an audio listener, shout out! Leave me a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for giving me your hard-earned time and listening today. And until next time, keep it rad. Later, fam. The Rad DAO podcast is produced for entertainment and education purposes only. I know this because I'm not a licensed financial advisor. If you're thinking of investing in any of the tokens talked about during this episode, then I implore you to please do your own due diligence, and if necessary, consult with a licensed financial advisor. I think I got it that time. Holy fuck, that took forever.